There we go. All right. So great. Well, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. And I'm really excited about Laura sharing her information. Just to give you kind of a background why we're doing this. We started this practitioner highlight Zoom, and tonight's our first one. And it's because, you know, all of you know, we've been sharing like since the last few months. It's just been amazing with the people that we've been connected with, and just healers all over the world who have a lot to be able to share and just incredible knowledge. And I know that all of us are hungry for that. We all want to know what we can be doing, what we can be learning, and how we can make a difference. And so that's what I love about our group. And we are very passionate to continue to bring education and information and connection. And so we were, Laura and Brian and I were up in an event in ESETI. I know a few of you know what that is, the event. And Laura was a keynote speaker there, and I heard her speak, and I thought, man, she's got to share this with our group. I mean, it's just powerful information, and it's so relevant to right now. And so I'm just excited to share Laura with you tonight, and we're going to continue every month to bring on somebody who in our group who has information to share that can really make a difference for us. So thank you, Laura, for pouring into our group tonight. And I'm just going to let you kind of introduce yourself. Uh-oh, I think you're still muted.
Thank you.
Oh, there you are. Yeah.
Okay.
Nope, you're good.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for thinking of me. My background is I used to be a public school teacher, and about 15 years ago or so, the paranormal just came descending upon us, and my life mirrored that of a Hollywood horror movie. And that's the PG version of it. It was really, really bad. I quit teaching and I had to figure this out. One of the things I figured out was everything is energy, and energy can be manipulated in many ways for good and for bad. And in my process, I was literally fighting a spiritual war in my house every day. It wouldn't be uncommon for me just to be making dinner and standing there at the kitchen chopping vegetables and being choked to the point where I was going to pass out, but nothing was behind me. One night, our then 6-year-old little girl comes racing down the hallway, and you can hear, her feet running down the hall. She jumps into bed. I wrap my arms around her, and I could feel her little heartbeat thumping through my body. And she was telling me, Mommy, the shadow men are in my room, and they're talking about how they want to steal my soul so they can break you. She's 6 years old. That's not a normal conversation. And that's how I got my start. And what I've realized is that we are in a spiritual war, and it shows up in many different faces, many different ways. And in my practice, when I work with clients, I often use the Healy machine also. So, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, but that's my general background. And my goal is to create a logic trail behind what I do. So I'm going to give them kind of the nutshell version of things. But when the Luciferic forces fell from the light of God, creator, whatever you want to call it, they had to go somewhere. And the Luciferic forces could be the reptilians, it could be demons, it could be anything you want it to be. But when they fell from the light of God, they had to go somewhere. So where did they go? They went from the fifth dimension, the heavens, down to the fourth dimension. And it became a step down transformer for them. But these beings and entities still need a food source, a fuel source. They no longer have access to the light of God or source or creator. So they got creative. They set up shop in what we call the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension is known as the hells, purgatory, lower astral, limbo, all of those names. That's the fourth dimension. Now we humans incarnate here, and we live in the third dimension. This is the land of physicality. We need time, space, and gravity to have this physical world. So we come here for the experiences our souls need on our soul path, our karmic path. And when we die and we leave these bodies, now these bodies are just rental units, right? We don't take them with us. And just, my joke is I hope we get our deposit back. So when we die and we leave these bodies, our soul has to go somewhere. The energy that animates this body has to go somewhere. Where does it go? It goes from the third dimension, and we need a step up transformer from the third to the fourth dimension to get a little bit of healing and restoration before we can transcend to the fifth dimension and higher. The problem is these dark entities have literally thwarted God's ascension plan for us. They have created a net so that they trap these souls. And we've all seen them. We've all seen, even if it's in the 6 o'clock news or whatever it is, those people who have those soulless eyes, right? Not all babies are heaven sent. Not all people come from the higher realms when they come here. This is the problem, and it's been ignored for many millennia. And this is what I've been learning throughout my trials and tribulations of how to figure this out. And these entities will capture these souls and use them as an energy source because we are of the light. We are God's source. The problem is they don't ever, the soul that gets trapped never gets the soul healing and soul restoration. These dark entities, these Luciferic forces, have been puppeting us for millennia, many millennia. This is a problem. We have been programmed to believe that a bad person should rot in hell. We've been programmed to believe that a person who dies suddenly and is a ghost has unfinished business. When you leave your body, your business is finished. You need to go home. You need to go to the higher realms. So we've been programmed to believe all of these things throughout our many lifetimes. And what happens is we are stopping the ascension process. And we're at a critical point right now. Our world is so full of chaos. We are so fear-based. And we need to take our power back. These dark entities are very weak. The only power they have over us is that we don't always see them or notice them. Have you ever felt like you've had some anxiety and you didn't quite feel what was going on, or you feel like you're fogged or something's not quite right? Chances are it's a dark energy or entity that is kind of overshadowing you. And we can do some things about this. One of the things, there's many tools that are being made available to us, and our light teams are working on giving us information. The spiritual war is being played out in many ways, in many dimensions. It's being played out in our politics. It's being played out in our schools. It's being played out in the workplaces. It's in every facet of our lives, our television sets. Everywhere there's a piece of the spiritual war. So we need to learn how to take our power back as a collective so that we can remove these entities. Another thing we've been programmed to believe is that entities, and a lot of psychics and shaman and people like this will do this, they'll bury, cast away, bind a soul or a dark entity. They don't send them back to source or creator. And when we do this, they eventually escape. They will come back to haunt us or someone else. We need to send them back. And to me, there's nothing more cruel than to cast away a ghost. A ghost is a former human. They have the same emotions we have. They have the same feelings we have. When we cast them away, we're not helping that soul. When we can cross them over, then they get the help that is literally soul changing, because as we cross them over, they get the soul healing and soul restoration that every soul needs. Even the Jeffrey Epsteins of the world need to be crossed over, because they will puppet the living humans. We've seen it. Every culture throughout the history of this planet has words for ghosts, angels, and demons throughout all the eras, all the cultures. If they didn't exist, why is it that 500 BC India and 1682 Ireland have words for ghosts, angels, and demons? There's no connection between those two areas, right? So we have to learn how to do things differently. We need to have some tools that can help us to cross over the dead, because when we do that, we rob them of a fuel source. On my website, thekarmicpath.com, I don't know if you want to write that down, Dawn, in the chat, thekarmicpath.com, there is a crossing over prayer that if you print it, it really works. It crosses over souls, so you don't have to do the work. If you have a loved one who's died and you feel like they're with you, perhaps they're, sitting next to you in your car, or they're at the dinner table with you, that means they haven't crossed over. We've been programmed to believe that our loved ones can come back and forth here. Well, the news flash is that they don't come here for vacations. Once we finish our lifetime here, we need to go home so we can have that soul healing, soul restoration, and counseling from divine beings, higher realm beings, so they can help us. And then we can help our loved ones on this planet, but we don't do it by sitting down at the dinner table with them. We do it in our sleep state or possibly during emergencies. So that's another misnomer. I don't always win the popularity contest with that, but if you look at how spiritual law works, when we're done with this body, we're done with this body. We can pick a new suit out later, but we need to cross over. And there's a lot of tools that we can use to help us to cross them over and to protect ourselves. There's the crossing over prayer on the Karmic Path website, which I mentioned. There's also, a lot of people are familiar with the concept of violet flame. You can close your eyes and just visual a violet flame coming up through your body, and it will help clear and clean you. You can bring down a rain of salt. Salt cleanses in all dimensions. And we even have this really cool tool called a Healy machine. And the Healy machine has been a game changer for how I do my business. There's many, visualization techniques are important, but so are these other hands-on items that we have, such as the Healy machine. I have a lot of different things. I burn pure resins. Sage is not powerful enough in this day and age because everything has been amped up so much. If you're burning sage, it's not going to have the spiritual horsepower that maybe it once did. There's so many other things that you can use. You can burn pure resins of frankincense. And if you think about it, what was the Christ child gifted as a child? Frankincense, gold, and myrrh. How many people ever said, why was Christ gifted tree sap? Right? It's because it's high frequency. And those high frequency items is what the Christ child needed to live this mortal life. This is a really big deal. So we need to look at frequency on many different levels, and the Healy machine shores up our frequencies for what we need at that moment. We talk about our auric field, and, a lot of us have had our auras read. Oh, my aura is purple, or oh, my aura is this, or oh, my aura is that. Well, the minute I punch you in the face, it's going to be red. And the Healy machine knows what we need, and we can apply it in many different ways. One of the things I did want to talk about is the concept of spiritual jurisdiction. And this came up because Dawn and I were talking about it. If you're on Zoom, can you clear somebody else's computer because you think they're a toxic person? The answer is no, because we don't have permission from that toxic person. But what we can do is clear the airwaves by visualizing just a rain of salt coming down or a violet flame coming up. If you're in a toxic meeting, let's say you're at work and you're in a meeting and the tension is so thick you can cut it with a knife, you can literally visualize pink rose petals floating down and cutting the energy to soften that energy. You can also block your solar plexus. If you're familiar with the chakras, the solar plexus is right here. You can just kind of put your hands in front of it and block it and return the energy. And what this will do is it helps protect you because our Aka cords are here. This is what connects us to every person, place, or thing. And I know I'm going a little fast. And if you have questions, please raise your hand or ask. there's a lot of things we can do, but with spiritual jurisdiction, we need to be mindful of what we can and cannot do with the Healy. For example, if I know my neighbor is a complete jerk, I cannot run the Healy on my neighbor to make him nicer. It would be great, right? But maybe that jerk of a neighbor needs to have some experiences that, for whatever reason, in his path. So we can't go and do these things to our neighbors and to other people, run a Healy on them without their permission. However, what we can do, and Dawn and I were talking about this, is we can use the Healy machine. There is, if you click on add a new client on the Healy, on the device, you get a choice of person, animal, plant, organization, building, vehicle group, etc. Now the organization, you have to be careful because I can't, just clear Microsoft. I don't have spiritual jurisdiction, right? It'd be awesome, right?
Yes.
But we have to be careful. What I can do is I can clear my office space where I'm working because my presence is being affected. I can clear the rooms that I'm going to be in at work. I can clear those things because I am present there. That means it gives me spiritual jurisdiction because I want to have clean and clear energies. You can clear your car with the Healy also. Our cars are metal, and metal attracts a lot of energies, and they get embedded in the energies. And you can clear your car with the Healy, which is very beneficial. And I surmise that if you clear your car with the Healy, your car is going to last longer and give you less problems. The energies that hit our cars, especially on the freeways, etc., take a toll on our cars. And by the way, make sure you love your car. Send your car your love and gratitude for taking you places. The way we treat our cars is the way our cars treat us. So if you have a car that, oh, this car is such a lemon, this car gives me problems, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's going to do that. So love your car, keep your car clean. Cleanliness is next to godliness. If your car looks like, a McDonald's dumpster, then you got a problem. Keep it clean. Use the Healy on your car to keep your car in tip-top shape. It's hard to say exactly how that will work, but I guarantee you it will manifest itself. Here's another thing, buildings. We can clear buildings with the Healy machine. All right. How many of us have kids in school or grandkids in school? We can clear schools with this because we are taxpayers. We pay for those buildings. We can clear schools with the Healy machine. And Dawn, help me out here. You're going to just basically put in the address to the Healy machine or in the Healy machine.
Yeah. Yep. So when you go in and you add a client, if you have a very specific building and like you said, your child or grandchild or whoever, or just the school, because you are a taxpayer in your community. And I encourage people we all can do this in our communities because we want our children to be safe and we want them to be in the best atmosphere. So you find the address of the building, and like a lot of times when Brian's looking for something and you're doing a location, you can actually pull it up on Google Maps and you can find the latitude and longitude right on Google Maps. It tells you. So when you go in and you put in a building, it'll ask you exactly for the address. It'll ask you for the latitude and longitude. And that's the accuracy of the Healy. It's going straight for that area. So then you are being very accurate with the child's, with that school in your community.
And it helps all of those within that school community. Another thing that we can work on clearing is our government buildings. Think about that. Our state capitals, our local county offices, We can also use the Healy on that because we are taxpayers. We have spiritual jurisdiction. And I know California is every state's going through a lot. California is about ready to do a recall on a governor for a vote. The state that I'm in at the moment is going through a lot of volatile times. And I think a lot of our politicians are inhabited. They are literally inhabited with these dark entities. And if we can clean and clear those office spaces, the chances of them becoming less inhabited over time grows. Now, this is unproven science right now because this Healy machine is so new. And I'm working on clearing a building on a regular basis, and it seems to be going really well, but I'm only one data point. So clearing the Capitol buildings, clearing the office spaces of your politicians. You're not clearing the politicians because that would be a violation, but you're clearing the office spaces. So Mindy says something here. You're clearing the office spaces of the Healy through the Healy machine. And Mindy asked a really good question. Could you go through the process for clearing a building? Do you want to address that one, Dawn?
Yeah, so what you're going to do is you're going to, again, you're going to go into your blue app on the analysis. You're going to add a new client. And when the drop down comes, you're going to click building and you're going to fill out all that information. And then you're going to synchronize the data with the cloud. And the cloud means the information field, the quantum field. Once you click that little bottom left, and then you're going to click the top right check mark, that saves that building into your Healy. Then you're going to take that and you're going to run an analysis. So you're going to go into the all Healy programs. You'll run an analysis on the building. Again, the intention, and maybe Laura, you could talk about the intention behind what we're doing here, but you're going to hold the intention of what would they hold that for?
You know, you're going to hold the intention for the greatest good of the building. Not necessarily the occupants, but the greatest good of the building, because these dark forces, these energies, these entities reside within the buildings. So you're going to set the intention for, I want to clear, not necessarily I want to, but the intention you put your finger is to clear this building for the greater good. We're always looking for the greater good. We have to take our emotions out of it. The minute you put an emotion into it is the minute that it can be corrupted. Because our emotions can give us, emotions can be complicated. So when we set our emotions aside and we're clearing, I'm setting the intention to clear this building for the greater good, I'm out of the picture. I'm not asking a question. I'm not saying I wish, I want, but we're setting that intention. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. Yep. And so as you you run the assessment with that intention for the greater good, I'm clearing this building for the greater good. I always, my statement's always for the highest and best interest, right? For the and then you run the assessment, and then you're going to come up with those top 5 categories. The next assessment you're going to do is go into that top category that came up. So say it's, you know, the protection programs or gold cycle or whatever it is, then you're going to run the next assessment with that category. Again, holding that same intention that you started with. And then from there, you can, this is the cool thing about the Healy, you can vibrate. You know, you've all used vibrate on the blue app. Well, you can change the time. So if you look at, normally we recommend like the 2-minute and 49-second, or there's different protocols out there, but for buildings, you can actually run it for like the 4-hour time frame. So you can actually vibrate on it for 4 hours, and it's sending the frequencies of all those top 5 programs now through the building and clearing. So you can do that way. And then you can also go straight into the pink app after that and run that top program again with the intention of, I'm clearing this building for the greater good. And then you run the pink app.
And that's great because you can also run it at night while you're sleeping.
Yes.
So you can use the Healy on yourself the next day or your clients or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And something to note is that when you're running it in the Blue app like that, because we do this on our land all the time where we'll run it for, 4 hours, and that can run down the battery. But in the Blue app, once you start running the vibration, you can actually plug it in and charge it. It's the only app, it's the only one that you can actually charge your Healy while it's running the vibrations. So like you said, Laura, you can set it at night, or like a lot of times for us, we'll set it on our home or on our property when we leave, and we'll just set it and we'll plug it in. And so everything's plugged in and running, so it's not draining your battery at all.
That's a really good tip. I did not know that about the Blue app. That's awesome.
Yeah. Good.
Awesome. And as we're doing these things, I mean, and I have to commend Dawn and Kristen and Brian for creating these groups, because really we're really at the 11th hour on all of these clearings and healings and what we can do. It's such a world out of balance because these dark entities have been left unchecked for so long, and the Healy machine really works well in assisting us to be clear. When we are clean and clear, we think better. Our intuition is improved. And our intuition, by the way, is our most profound psychic ability. A lot of people think it's seeing dead people, but it's not. When we use our intuition and we learn to develop our intuition, and by the way, a lot of us have been programmed to not use it as small children. When we learn how to develop it, it gives us wisdom and insight. So when we have difficult situations, we can take a step back and pause before we react. And we can learn how to see ahead. And this is where intuition and psychic abilities really come into play together. When we develop our intuition, we're learning how to see ahead. We're learning how to look down from the 40,000-foot viewpoint, because this gives us insight as to what is coming down the chute. And the more we can know about what's going to come down the chute, the better we can handle it, the less surprises there are.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. That is a lot of information compacted. Are there any questions?
Well, I just kind of wanted to go through, we'll open it up for questions in a little bit, but what I wanted to kind of ask a few things, because, and just kind of give people, I just read Laura just came out with a new book. And so I don't know if you guys, some of you have talked with me, you all know that I'm a very simple person. I really like to the point, and I love Laura's book because it was like, what, 100 pages maybe, Laura?
Yeah.
But it was packed full of really good information. And so if you want, her book is Soul Tribe. You can get it on Amazon.
Amazon. It's Soul Tribe, Navigating the Spiritual War. And it is, I don't know about you guys, but I hate it when I get on a Zoom call and I have to wait 20 minutes to get a little nugget of something that's valuable. The book is this way. It's just packed with information. And I've had people, strangers, telling me through emails that they're creating a study group with it. They are using it for this purpose or that purpose. And so it's packed full of information. It's a small book, but it's got a lot of really good information that I hope people find helpful.
Oh yeah, I found it really, really helpful. And, again, going back to what I said in the start of this call, is when I saw you at ESETI Talk, and, Laura and I met, just to give you guys a background, Laura and so Brian and Kristen and I went to the 5D quantum healing conference in Vegas, in March. And that's where like all these connections happened. We know that it was very much a moment that was supposed to happen. And since then, I've known the work that Laura does, but when Brian and I went up to ESETI and saw her speak, I mean, I was in tears like throughout. Brian and I were just like on our edge, and the things that you shared, and I just felt so like, we have to get this information out. Everybody wants to do something, and everybody in this group, I mean, when Kristen and Brian and I talk about it all the time, after many of the people in here were on the Michael Jaco interview. And after that, we've the people that have come to us are just so phenomenal. This group is just an amazing group, and they all want to do something. I feel like that is definitely the thread through everybody, is like, what can I do? How, what are things that I can do to help? And I think that that's when I saw you speak, I was just like, oh my gosh, like, people need to know, when you're talking about cleaning up the fourth dimension, I'm like, we've got to do that. Like, we have to do that as a group. Like, people need to know what's happening, and people need this information to help, because you
It's
can't
a
just,
problem.
yeah, you can't do it all on your own.
It's a problem. And, and I know Karen Worcester personally, who's on here too. And I know she does a lot of work as well, but and I have an amazing spiritual team. I know I do. And my book, Soul Tribe, Navigating the Spiritual War, one of the main focuses is on how do you build your spiritual team with intention and discernment, because these dark entities are great shapeshifters. How do you know that your spiritual guide is who they say they are? One of the ways is, as you're meditating or trying to communicate with your spiritual team, visualize yourself pouring salt on them. That's a very simple way. They cannot, the dark ones cannot handle the frequency of salt. It burns them. And what happens is it shapeshifts. For example, I had a client who was actually lived close to me, which is kind of rare. And I crossed over my client's mother. She was elderly, but the mother was living in the house before she died, and she was living in the house after she died. And the client knew that this was going on. And so she hired me, and we crossed over her mom, and it was great. So when I work with somebody, we work with it as a team. I'm never going to say, oh, Dawn, there is a 12-headed dragon next to you or whatever, because we work as a team and you can see what I'm seeing. So I'm crossing over grandma, we cross her over, and about a week or two later, I get a phone call from the client saying, my daughter, who's 14, is incredibly psychic, and she's seeing her grandmother. And how is that? And I said, well, that's interesting. And it turns out that the granddaughter and about 6 or 7 of her friends were using this Ouija board, and that's what they would do on the weekends. And you can see where this is going, right? And so the daughter is really psychic also. She, I come over and we're in their den, and I said, well, I'm really impressed. I want to see grandma. And so we sit down, and I create basically a psychic containment field in the den. And in that process, this grandma shows up, and now these dark entities can read our minds. Grandma shows up, and grandma is telling us all kinds of things, desires and wishes and stuff of the granddaughter. And they were very, very close because grandma lived with the family. And I said, okay, just a minute. And I literally visualized pouring salt on grandma, and grandma turned into, I'm not kidding you, a reptilian. And the granddaughter saw this. It was a shapeshifter pretending to be grandma. How do we know the difference? We have been taught to blindly trust. Oh, this is my spirit guide. Oh, I must, it's my spirit guide. We have to, say what it, follow what it says or whatever. Wrong. Use discernment. If you're a parent, you're never going to let your child go up to the ice cream truck by himself as a 4-year-old, are you? No, you're going to use discernment. You're going to say, who's the creeper in the van? Use discernment. The same rules that apply here apply in those other dimensions. The shapeshifters in the 3rd dimension, that priest who's a pedophile, that exists in other dimensions too. So use salt, use violet flame. There's all kinds of things you can do. I'm actually going to be teaching a class on spiritual self-defense. It's a 3-week class, and it comes with a very extensive clearing kit. And it's designed to give us our power back. It's designed to help us understand how these unseen energies and entities work. because we need to take our power back. We need to understand that these things exist. And when we do that, we get to live better lives, easier lives.
Yeah. And one of the things that, especially for this group, I talk about this, and because, we're very protective of all of you because you're out working with us. And when we've all seen this, Kristen, Brian, Laura, all of us have seen this with us. The more good we do, the more that we're above the radar, we're flying above the radar. So the more diligent you need to be about really protecting yourself, having awareness, because what we're doing is making a difference. But it's important to know that you need to be diligent with these practices. You need to learn them. And I say that because we've experienced it time and time again over the last few months. So I encourage you guys, if this, either, get Laura's book or take her class or do both. I know, Laura, you guys, we also have a really great event with Laura coming up here next month.
I'm excited about this.
Yeah. So we've got in Destination Masterminds and Bishop here, we've got a 3-day etheric retreat with Laura and Vivian Chavez and Robert Novak. And that's one of our very, we're launching some events now because we're opening up and we're done with this. So
we have to be diligent. You were saying that we have to be diligent. The more work we do in cleaning and clearing the darkness, it's very possible the more they come after us. So using this Healy machine, this Healy device, really does a great job at keeping us clean and clear. And especially with that mental fog, because when we're fogged, we tend to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And using this and being diligent with it is really helpful. And, like Karen Worcester was talking about at the beginning, using it on your animals as well. We talked about cars and buildings, use it on your animals, your pets.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And, everything, it's interesting because the more that we focus on frequency, the more you see frequency everywhere, right? Everybody's talking about frequency now. You talk about it. And the higher frequency that we can maintain, the better. And that is the goal of all of us. We have this group and we want us all to have this higher frequency. And we also want to go out and share that higher frequency, like we said, in our communities with other people. We have something very powerful to share and to make a difference with. So,
thank you. And, the higher we raise our frequency, we're always talking about frequency, as Dawn said, the higher we raise our frequency, when we get hit, we don't fall as hard. An example of that is, have you ever felt like you've been super busy, and then you feel like you're on the edge of a cold, but you never fully get that cold? That's because your defense systems were up and it knocked the cold out of your auric field before it hit your body. And it's the same concept applied to frequency.
Awesome. So good. So I'm gonna end the recording here in a second, and then we can ask questions. There's a question from Cynthia. Can we go through the protection Healy programs and what each one is for? So go back to your welcome resources, Cynthia, and all you guys, the welcome email that we send you when you first get your Healy, that comes from Elevated Life. On there, on the getting started link, you will see the programs list, and it will lay out all of the protection programs and what they're for. I believe the only one that's not on there, it might be on there now. I think they've shifted the program list here and there, but the one that's not on mine that I know I've seen on others is Subtle, and Subtle is the one that is for sure for, darker entities and things hanging around, energies and things hanging around. So that one is one that I'm very consistently running to make sure, and general protection. That one's a really good one too. So those are good protective ones. But so we'll send out tomorrow. Brian will send out a nice email like he always does for us, and we'll send this recording in case you want to watch it again. Or and I'm going to stop the recording, and then if we have any other